afternoon, New River Valley. I'm Joe Harris, news reporter at wuvt-fm 90.7 Blacksburg, here with 9th Congressional District candidate Douglas Crockett for the 2026 election. Hello, Mr. Crockett. How are you today?
Hello, Joe. I am doing well. Yeah, having a pretty good day.
Nice.
Been slow, but it's getting busier.
Oh, yeah.
I'm here.
I can believe that.
Yeah.
At least it's been a very nice day.
Yeah.
So far.
A little warmer than yesterday, which is good.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I want to begin by first just asking you, what makes you passionate about running for Congress?
Running for office had never crossed my mind until the spring of last year. And I retired from the Methodist Church as a pastor in 2023. I was doing that part-time, and I retired. Well, I closed my law practice I was closing it in 2025, and so I was like, and as I was scaling down, I was like, well, what am I going to do next? And so I started thinking about that and praying about it, and I got some answers back, and that was one of them, and it was like, what? So, but what caused me to ask the question was the 2024 election. Partly because I'd always dreamed and I always told people that I wanted to be able to combine law and ministry into one. And, that's what I was thinking was like, how am I going to do that? And I was getting these thoughts and ideas about politics, but I didn't really think anything about it until that moment when it was like, run for office. So, and, I'm just, the way things are, I've lived on this planet for a while, and I've seen things go back and forth, left and right, and, I've been upset, but this situation is just intolerable to just, as far as just being able to sit back and do nothing. So it was like I wanted to do something. I didn't know what I could do, and so it all kind of fit together. And so I want to see some change, see us go back to normalcy and growing up as a nation. And I just feel like we've gotten off track. This idea of making America great again, which in concept is not a bad thing, but we're talking about going back to some period that nobody ever defines, which turns out to be a period that people like me didn't do too well in, right. That my parents had to live through as African Americans, and we've come too far for that. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's really inspiring, and that's a really good reason to run for Congress. Like you had mentioned, you do have a strong rootedness in Christianity, and you served for over 30 years as a Methodist pastor. How did your pastoral experience equip you for this journey?
It's about caring for people. I can, combining that with law, I can baptize you, I can bury you, I can marry you, I can divorce you. So I've seen people at the high points of their lives and at the low points, and it's all service and caring about people. And I think that's a continuation of that, kind of combining law and trying to make laws, what I would call compassionate legislation, that helps people, that helps everybody. I don't like the idea of left and right. I know it's a reality that people have different positions, but I think conservative people have some legitimate concerns, but it's just that I think our concerns on the progressive side are of a higher priority, so I'm willing to try to work with them to try to help with their concerns, but I think what we need to talk about is, what's more important,
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah. So I want to try to work with people. I think I can work with people, not just ministry, but the law help too with negotiating, because, most cases don't go to trial. Yeah. People work it out, and so you have to try to work with somebody who has a totally different opinion of the facts and the law than you do, and try to come to some sort of consensus about what to do.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So with your pastoral experience and your experience as an attorney, what kind of is your vision for the state of Virginia moving forward?
There are a lot of things we need to improve on. Let me first say, I'm just walking over here. I'm amazed at what's here. I mean, Southwest Virginia, I think, has some good stuff, has some good things. And, I mean, I see pockets of places where, up in Whitfield where I am, that, it looks like a vibrant, but behind the scenes is what's, where the problems are that you don't, see all the time. So I think, affordability is an issue, so we need to try to do something about that. I think what's happened, I think where we were in 2024, even though things weren't perfect, we were on the right track. Mm-hmm. So if we could get the ACA back and get the enhanced subsidies back, if we could get the tariffs out of the way, if we could stop locking people up and, putting little children, treating them like criminals and people that are doing what they're supposed to do all the time and are not a problem, leave those people alone or try to help them. Affordability, I think healthcare is a big issue. Broadband's an issue in Southwest Virginia. I know I saw an interview with Morgan Griffith, and he said, I think it might have been a debate that he had here, where he was saying that's one of the things that they wanted to finish up. Well, it hasn't been finished up, in the last 2 years. So, that needs to be taken care of. Environment is an important issue. The data center issue is big now in Southwest Virginia, and that has to do with the environment and the power grid. And so I just see those things brought into line with where the main priority is. We don't just ignore stuff. Like, we don't ignore the environment and say, well, we're just going to go for the money and put in a bunch of data centers and that sort of thing. But we have to think about not just, our health and the weather that we have to live with, but our children, our children's children, which I have children and children's children. And then they're on after that, so that's important. So that's all that comes to mind right now, but something else may pop up.
That's amazing. You did bring up healthcare. So let me ask, you've championed support for Medicare across your campaign material, and you state, quote, since the 2024 election, Republicans have moved in the wrong direction, cutting Medicaid, reducing health insurance subsidies, and advancing policies that reflect a narrow view of healthcare. Rather than the needs of most Americans, we must do better. So how would Medicare for All work in the 9th District of Virginia, especially to ensure that rural hospitals stay open?
Okay. Now, I don't know. Did you say I said Medicare for All?
Yes.
Because I didn't say.
Well, you had just brought up healthcare.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not in the staunch universal healthcare camp.
Right.
So, the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, was working. It originally, people could get health care up to 400% of the federal poverty level. And then with the enhanced subsidies, that took out the 400% cap, and people above that could get it. So, that was working. Medicaid, all those things could be improved. The ACA and healthcare, there are proposals about how to do that. But what we've done is we've gone in the wrong direction with, cutting Medicaid, cutting the enhanced subsidies. The enhanced subsidies is going to affect, put 5,000 people off of without health insurance, and then the Medicaid. It's, I think, in Virginia, in Southwest Virginia, the 9th District, they estimate 36,000 people will lose Medicaid coverage. So, I think we need to go back to that and then try and improve. Medicare for All, the problem I have with that is, when the ACA was being talked about, Republicans wouldn't agree on a public option, which would have driven the price down of private insurance. At least that was the theory. And they would not agree to that, so we have the subsidy idea, which is trying to help people to pay for health care insurance. And so if it was just one party, it was just Democrats, woohoo, we could get Medicare for all. That's the most humane option, right. But just the practicality of it is what I have an issue with. And if the Democrats, if we had enough people to be elected in this cycle, and we could do that, I mean, I would seriously consider doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you believe that the obstacle in working towards healthcare for all is Republicans?
Yeah.
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 Absolutely.
Right.
So are those subsidies that you bring up a strategy that you would like to implement if you are elected to expand access for healthcare in communities that may be underserved as of right now?
Yes. Yes. I would like to see those come back. It's like, what, $400 million, I believe it is? Oh, $400 billion. Yeah, because the total cost of Medicaid, Medicare, and the subsidies with the enhanced subsidies is like $1.5 trillion.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would like to see those come back. I would work to try to get them back, sure.
Yes.
I couldn't do it on my own. Again, I think Democrats would be on board. Most Democrats would be on board. But then we have to try to convince some Republicans that, they're trying to come up with their own health plan, but, I don't think they have a very good track record of that.
Right.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it would be a very expensive undertaking, like you said, with the budget.
Yeah.
So, thank you for that. Let's move on. What's an issue that you would say is the biggest challenge that Southwest Virginians face today?
Southwest Virginia, the biggest challenge. I think that needs to be decided by the people.
Right.
I would, what I would hope to be able to do would not have everything be my ideas. I have ideas, and all of those things are important. I don't necessarily have one that sticks out. I guess affordability probably would be the most, health insurance is up there too.
Right.
It's like healthcare, affordability, they're all important. The environment is important. But I would want to talk to people and get input as we go through this campaign. And if I was elected, I would continue to talk to people to try to, see what was most important in their minds. And things could change between now and November.
Absolutely.
What's important today might be different come November. And then, my idea of what Congress would be like is probably different than the reality. So, you'd get there and you got to work with all these other people. And, I could propose things and try and get other people to come on board. But, I would want to listen to the people about that. And I think it would be hard to distinguish for me between that, those three: environment, jobs, which has to do with the economy. The economy was growing in 2024. Jobs were, we were adding jobs, and now we're not, and not as many anyway. So, that's, I think probably if I was to poll the community, it's just hard to say. It's just hard to say what people would say.
Is a large region.
Yeah.
Whether we want
Yeah.
to say it or not.
And then people are leaving, the population's declining, and, that's tied to all of that.
Yeah, everything is constantly changing. So it's hard to know. And it's such a kind of diverse region, especially with, Virginia Tech and the university being in that region as well. Yeah. There's a lot of different people that might have different priorities as far as challenges that Southwest Virginians face.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. So you bring up a lot of issues, and you just did bring up a lot of issues when discussing what challenges Virginians face. But one of the standout issues that you bring up on your campaign website is public safety and security. Your website states, "We must adopt common sense measures to reduce unnecessary violence and keep weapons out of the hands of those who intend to harm others." Now, what is your definition of common sense measures, and what would these measures look like if you were to be elected?
Okay. Could you repeat the question one more time?
Absolutely.
Right.
So you just
that
addressed...
was a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even though I said
I just pulled a quote from your campaign
Yeah.
website about public safety and security. I assume that this pertains to gun violence and
Yeah,
deadly weapons.
yeah.
We must adopt common sense measures to reduce unnecessary violence and keep weapons out of the hands of those who intend to harm others. So the phrasing there, common sense measures.
Right.
What to you are common sense measures that would help eliminate these violent attacks that are happening in our country?
Yeah. Yeah, that's it's not that I have the answers. I know that is important, and we have to respect I'm not like a rabid Second Amendment person, but that's one of the amendments. That's one of the rights that we have,
Right.
and so I believe in that all those amendments are important. I think we need an extra one actually regarding privacy, but we've got to figure out a way. I think there's a block in Congress right now where you can't get funding to study gun violence.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to know what the solutions are if you can't really, have people who actually study the issue and come up with, hey, this is the idea, this is the idea. I think, trying to reach young people, trying to, help people identify, these are not necessarily gun measures, but they're kind of people measures, and is to, to help people to get on the right track and not on the wrong track, to identify folks who, it's hard to do that, but to identify folks who might potentially have an issue that might end up in some sort of gun violence.
Yeah.
If we could reduce the number of guns in the country, I think that would be, and one of the things that I want to study, and I haven't had a chance to do it, is, okay, you have a right to bear arms. Do you right to have ammunition?
Right.
Is that a different issue, or is that the same? Does that lumped into that? I think, we have to be creative, and we have to think about maybe outside the box a little bit about how to do that while respecting the amendment. There was a time when I was like, the Constitution's really not working. We need to change a whole bunch of stuff. But I think we just need to be creative, and we need to try to figure out what those are while we respect people's right to bear arms.
Yeah.
But try to, I think that's just the guide, is try to keep guns out of the hands of the wrong people. But there's a limit to how much you can do that way. So, you just can't handicap, where there are unnecessary handicaps. And I know there's some legislation that's been passed. I think there are things still yet on the table that haven't been, right off the top of my head, wouldn't be able to say what those are, but I know there's been debate about, different types of weapons. Nobody needs an AK-47.
Right.
I just can't see the sense in that.
Mm-hmm.
What are you hunting with something like that?
Absolutely.
It just doesn't make sense to me. Trying to, where they can quickly change a regular weapon into an automatic weapon, that type of stuff needs to be, I think, taken out of the equation. There's, there needs to be, there doesn't need to be any situation where people can sell guns without some sort of background check, I would think.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I think you got to hold people accountable, which is happening more today. Parents being convicted for their kids' deeds with weapons. I hate to see that happen. I wish there was some better way we could do that, but maybe that sort of thing would help as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. A lot of these that you proposed are either on the individual level, like those background checks, or kind of assessing those people to make sure that people who shouldn't have guns don't have guns.
Right.
But then you also do bring up that nobody needs an assault weapon.
Right.
Like that.
Right.
And that kind of leads me into my next question. Virginia SB 749 would ban assault weapons. What would you consider an assault weapon, and do you believe that there should be a limit on how many bullets are in a firearms magazine? Because you do bring up the the person's right to bear arms. But
Right.
to what extent
Right.
should they be able to own any weapon?
Right. Yeah. I'd say there's probably a legal definition of an assault weapon. I don't know what that is. I would think any sort of automatic fire type of weapon that can just, quickly fire a bunch of rounds, to me sounds like an assault weapon.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what was the other part of the question?
Do you
How many
believe that-
rounds should be in
Yeah,
there?
how many bullets should be in a firearms magazine?
That can fire automatically, or that can just...
Just in general.
I am not a gun person, so...
And neither am I, personally.
I mean, I have lived most of my life believing that, like a pistol that has 6 or 8 rounds. I mean, we didn't seem to have a whole lot of problem,
Right.
up till now. So, I mean, that seems like a reasonable amount. I mean, why? But I think it all depends too on where, what place you're talking about. Out in public with a bunch of people. I mean, the limit shouldn't be more than that for sure. If you're out in the woods somewhere, away from civilization, might be a different rule for that.
It's like you said earlier, what are you hunting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there may be something that makes sense for, but I don't know.
So you believe there are different appropriate settings for different types of weapons?
Yeah.
But those type of weapons
Yeah.
shouldn't really be in public settings whatsoever.
Yeah. And I think the more people you have in a place, the fewer rounds we're talking about. I mean, on a college campus or in the middle of a big city, in a grocery store, community where there are a bunch of churches or schools.
Yeah.
I think that would be, a lower limit.
An extremely prevalent issue in our country and even our state
Yeah.
today. So.
Yeah.
So, again, still on the topic of weapons, Virginia HB 101 makes it easier for a Virginia resident to obtain a concealed carry permit. If you were a member of the Virginia government, whether it be House, Senate, or governor, would you support this bill?
How does it make it easier? Do you know?
I have no idea.
It depends on what the language is, about how it makes it easier. I mean, concealed carry, I think that's been acceptable most of my life.
Yeah.
So, it hasn't been a problem. And so I make it, that's, okay. So that's not been passed, or it has been passed? HB1 sounds like it's not passed yet. So, yeah, it would depend on the language for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
One of the issues that you also bring up on your campaign website is America's brand.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how does your campaign align with the American people and America's brand? And what would you say America's brand is?
Good question. It's not, tell you what it's not first. It's not going and attacking countries just because.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, out of vanity, which I think is what we're doing. You can't even, it's not starting fights with our allies. It's whether it's over taking somebody's land, or we're going to raise your tariffs up to an extreme level. And I mean, we see where that's gotten us. America's brand is, we're the light of hope. I mean, that's the way I see it. Is and so we have ideals. We're a democracy, and we stand up for what's right. I mean, we try to do what's right, and we don't. We try to be thoughtful. We try to help the little guy. We try to help other countries when they are in need. We take immigrants. We don't send them back. We're a compassionate, realistic, practical people.
Yeah.
But we have ideals, and so we try to live up to those ideals. So I think, that's I mean, we're the strongest, country militarily. I believe we still are. And we have a responsibility with that, and so that's kind of part of the brand too, is being responsible and living up to our responsibilities. We make promises, we keep our promises. We don't, and that shouldn't change drastically from one administration to the other.
Right.
Like with Iran, the situation we're in now, that's Donald Trump's fault.
Right.
I mean, it goes back to, we had a deal with Iran. They had worked something out to where we wouldn't have to do this sort of thing. But now we're in a position where, and why are we in this position? I think it goes back, and so we didn't keep our promise. And who trusts the United States now? I mean, if I was in Europe and they were trying to get me to send my military to Iran, telling me everything's going to be okay, everything's going to be all right, we're going to be there with you, I couldn't trust that. I mean,
right.
we're at a point where we can't be trusted. We have to rebuild that trust in the world. We have problems, but we deal with those problems. We deal with segregation. We deal with women's rights. We deal with those things. We stand up and we face them head on and we tackle them. Not always pretty, but we figure it out and we get there. So.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be a leader. I mean, I think that's America's brand. We lead. We don't run away. We don't, yeah.
Yeah. So it's safe to say that you don't believe our current administration reflects what America's brand should be.
No. And a part of that, too, would be putting people in positions who are capable people. And I think the people that, putting his friends in different places and TV personalities and and people who are not scientists over health. I mean that's okay.
Yeah.
I'll stop.
No, it's great. Thank you so much for your answer. You've been bringing up 2024 a lot and how the 2024 election was a turning point. And within Virginia's 9th District, in the 2024 election, your Republican opponent, Morgan Griffith, received almost 72.5% of the vote, and he's now seeking an 8th term. What issues do you think that Morgan Griffith has failed to solve in the 9th District, and how do you plan to contrast your vision for Virginia with his record?
Okay, so all of those that we said were important issues.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's failed on affordability, health care, environment, jobs, broadband. He's failed on all of those. And he's just basically given up to me his responsibility. Mm-hmm. I mean, if Donald Trump says this, he says okay. If he says that, he says okay. If he says no, he says all right. That's not representing the people that sent you to Congress to work for. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's trying to, and a part of that is, it's now, Republican, Democrat. You're one or the other, and you don't, and there's no, Republicans, including Morgan Griffith, just refuse to work with Democrats. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I'm willing to, I think conservatives have legitimate concerns.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all Americans. We're all on the same team. It's not like there are two teams and we're always fighting with each other. We're on the same team. There are concerns. I've lived a while, and I'm seeing issues now that I didn't, that were not issues when I was your age. They were just not thought about, and so
right.
From technology to, just everything. So it's hard. It's hard to manage all that, to process it, to figure out, okay, how do I as an individual, how do we as a country navigate all these new things? But we have to do the hard work, and a part of that is respecting people, trying to work with people, being open-minded, and I've not always been a compromise person.
Right.
Because I think there have been some bad compromises in this country's history. But I mean, I think that's the way we make progress,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Can't make a whole lot of progress when we're in conflict with one another.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And Morgan Griffith, as the seated incumbent since 2011, you believe that over these 15 years that he's been seated, that he hasn't done much.
Well, the people I talk to say he's changed. But some people say he's always been. But I've talked to people who we went to the same college. I went to Emory and Henry. He went to Emory and Henry. We were there at the same time, although I didn't know him. I don't know if he knew me. But I talked to people who knew him back then, and it's like, he's just changed. And, so, yeah, what was the question again?
I just, to all of the points that you had just made, I was saying that, do you believe that over the 15 years entirely that he's been seated in the 9th District, that he hasn't really done much for Southwest Virginia?
I wouldn't say he's not done anything, but, I think he's fallen short of, what the people in the 9th District deserve, what they should demand, and what I believe I could deliver, so.
Right.
Yeah.
So as current issues arise, one big current issue is the redistricting referendum.
Right.
And if that passes, VA09 will be plus 40 Republican per the Cook Political Report. So how do you think that you are a viable candidate in such a lopsided election?
I believe in miracles. That's kind of it's, I'm for the redistricting, because, I just think it has to be done. It's necessary. But I also think it may come down to, who's in the majority, that a Democrat wins in a Republican district. And so, part of is the strategy, so we're all on the same team. It's not a matter of, left and right, it's priorities. Then two, I think we have to try to get to the word games. So there are just a lot of word games being played, like make America great again.
Right.
They've never defined what that means. We have no definition of that. Yeah. I know what that means. That means that America is great when America is trying to live up to its ideals. America is great when we're liberating slaves in the South. America's great when we're liberating nations in World War II. America's great when we're siding with women in the early 1900s. America's great when we're siding with African Americans in the civil rights. That's when America is great, when we're trying to live up to the words on the Statue of Liberty. Send me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be free. Not when we're sending them back. So we have to deal with the word games and get people to think about what they stand for, and then, Republicans have to, we have to convince some Republicans, and the hard part of that is trying to reach them,
right.
Because I don't think I'm going to be on Fox News anytime soon, unless they're just talking bad about me, but just trying to reach them. And that part of the word games is, people need to be awake, and this idea of, well, you're woke. There's a hidden message in there about don't listen, don't pay attention, don't wake up. Woke is not a bad word. It's a word in the dictionary. And so, we need a coalition of people who are awake, who are attentive, and who are demanding of their representative to say, hey, we want you to work for us. We want you to deliver for us. We want to see you actually doing what we sent you to do. We're not, paying you to just side with Donald Trump all the time. And, I think people end up voting against their own self-interest, which doesn't, I don't understand that. We've got to get people to see that, let's do what's best for us. I don't want to see anybody left behind. I'm not against people in other parts of the country in other situations, but nobody needs to be left behind, and the 9th District, I think, gets left behind, and they feel left behind. You know?
And these words are very polarizing, with, woke and things like that, and with Make America Great Again, and what all those things mean. It can be very divisive, and I love that you bring that up.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we talk about you believe in miracles, and you believe that even though this is a heavily conservative district, that you can flip it and that you can win. How might you tailor your campaign message to resonate with the voters in this district that might be heavily conservative?
Part of it, I think, would be trying, not necessarily being overly religious, but I come from a religious background. I am a Christian. I've been a United Methodist minister, and a lot of the what's the right word? A lot of the resistance is kind of a religious thing. People have their beliefs, and I think that's something that I think needs to be talked about in some way. So people can, because the United Methodist Church split, right? Mm-hmm. Conservative and progressive, basically. Conservative folks like some of the other denominations, and I think until winning through some sort of redistricting. Okay, I'm like I said, I'm for redistricting, and I think that's fine. But I think you have to change people's hearts and minds. You have to talk to people and reason with them, and try to get to a place where we can talk together as, and I've thought about that, and I haven't quite figured it out yet, how we can get to sit down and have a venue where we can actually get people to come together to talk. I'm still trying to figure that out, how we do that. I don't have much time to figure it out, but I think that's the thing, is trying to get people to talk, and whether it be some sort of debate, or just a conversation, but where people will be willing to talk, because I think if we talk, I'm confident that people will be convinced.
Yeah.
If we talk.
Because you bring up a lot, especially during this interview. You think that conservatives have valid concerns, and you have a lot more in common with them than they might think from your pastoral experience and stuff like that. So through those things that you have in common with them, you may connect with them and tailor your message that way. And
what I did after 2024 election was basically I turned off the news. I turned off all the pundits. I started thinking about stuff, and I think what ends up happening, we start to demonize people, and I think if they keep watching Fox News and taking it in and just taking that stuff in, I'm just by being who I am, I'm a bad guy. Just by the labels that they put on me, I'm somehow the enemy, and that sort of thing, it just I think has no place. Yeah.
Thank you for that. What issue you plan to address in your campaign is your biggest priority? We've brought up public safety and security. We've brought up America's brand, and there are numerous others that you bring up on your website. But at this point, what is your biggest priority moving forward, especially before the election?
There's one I haven't mentioned. I guess I did mention it. I don't know if it's the biggest one, but what's my biggest priority? I guess I could try to lump all this into one thing. But you want a specific issue, huh?
Go for it. Whatever is most important to you, that's all I want to know. It does not have to be a specific issue.
I think the atmosphere of discrimination and, women, immigrants, African Americans, I think that is what I think can get me most emotionally upset. to see that we're going back to a time that, predates me knowing anything, and to know that my parents were born in 1911 and 1921, so they were a little older when I was born, and to think about what they went through, and what they have to struggle with, and then to see somebody saying that was okay. That was okay. We can, and women, I'm not a woman, but I know it's the same type of scenario, and then immigrants. We have, people talk about Nazism, or fascism, but we have people walking around on the streets in masks terrorizing people of color. Yeah. That makes me think of the 1920s, the 1930s, when African Americans were being lynched by the Ku Klux Klan. Just that idea of going back and not growing up, and that's a phrase I like to use, is, we're going to be 250 years old as a nation this year. Wow. And we're going to keep getting older. Mm-hmm. Automatically, without doing anything. But we have to do something to grow up, Mm-hmm. I had a period in my life, I was 17 years old, and I just didn't want to grow up. Mm-hmm. I had a bright future ahead of me, but I just wasn't ready to grow up. So I just started doing stuff that was very immature, and it set me back. And I can see how the country is sort of doing the same thing. We need to stand up, like my parents did and their parents did, and those many people who worked hard for the ideals of this country, black, white, male, female, and just say, hey, we're going to do what's right. We're going to make things right. We're going to live up to who we are, who we say we are. Because when we put something, not everything on paper is important, but when we claim that the Constitution is pretty much sacred, and then Christians want to say the Bible is sacred, mm-hmm. Well, hey, let's take that seriously, and let's not, just ignore it. Let's live up to what it really stands for. Yeah.
And acknowledge it in its entirety.
Right.
All at once.
Right. Yeah, not just pick and choose and say, well, I'm an American because I fly a flag and I carry a gun and, that sort of thing.
To know what that means, and that kind of goes back to America's brand, like you said earlier.
Yeah.
About being leaders and acknowledging people that need help. So.
Right.
How would you suppose that if you were elected, you would stay tapped into what your constituents like and what their desires are?
Yeah, there would have to be, there has to be communication. Mm-hmm. I think that's the most important thing. I think staying tuned into the news, the local newspapers, see what their take is on things, but mostly it's communication, and communication is a funny thing. Communication, even when it's hard to communicate. It's hard to communicate, but we have to communicate. Have to be in the district. Have to be visiting with the people. Have to have. I think it's important that we have key people in different sectors who we can rely on to give us some truthful information. Mm-hmm. I think that's important, is that we listen, but we listen for the truth and try to get the truth and try to give people the truth in return, because we're not going to solve any problems if we are not speaking the truth to each other. And so, if I do something wrong, I'll admit it, and I'll take whatever the consequences are. But I'm going to tell people the truth, and so,
right. Yeah, to keep up with what your constituents want and, what their desires are moving forward, especially with their government. It is important to take a communicative approach, and you think that's what you'll do? Yes,
definitely. Being in the district, again, I've not been in Congress, so I don't know, couldn't tell you exactly how it works. But there needs to be communication, constant communication, available communication, by phone, email, and all that good stuff. But there needs to be face communication as well.
And keeping up with all of your different demographics.
Oh, yeah.
Your age groups and all of that kind of stuff. And that kind of brings me to my next question.
Okay.
So in the 2025 election, Democrats had a sweep. We won, well, not we, but Democrats won every single statewide race and 13 additional seats in the House of Delegates. So when looking at voter results, Virginia college campuses in particular flipped Democratic. So does this mean that you'll gear your campaign more towards college-aged people, or do you think that this flip in college-aged students says that you should kind of focus more on older demographics?
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to ask you to repeat the question
That's
one more
okay.
time. The last part
I
of it
just kind
anyway.
of detailed about how college campuses in particular had a very severe flip towards the Democratic side.
Okay.
So knowing this and having this in mind as you further your campaign, do you think that you'll focus more or less on college-aged individuals in contrast with older people?
You know, being the age I am, you know, it's not automatic. So I would have to put forth more effort to do that. But it doesn't take much effort to remember, you know, student loans. And, well, I don't have to remember. I still have student loans. You know, I mean, I've gone to school now 3 times. And each time, you know, you get out and you have to start over and, you know, you have to deal with it. I can remember, you know, going overdrawn in the bank account, credit card issues. You know, 2008 we had issues with the house and, you know, the all that stuff. So it's not hard to get back to that, trying to start a family and start a job. And so I can relate, but I have to put forth some effort to do that, because a lot of the people I see as so far in this campaign have been older people. I've seen some young. There are like 6, I think, young Democrat organizations in the 9th District. Met some people from here. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that would be the main focus of the campaign, but I would definitely want to be inclusive of that group as much as possible, and be sensitive to what the issues are there. And I know they're going to be a little bit different. But yeah, I think I can relate. Like I said, I've baptized babies. I've counseled young people and officiated at their weddings. You know, dealt with people in all walks of life, all rural, urban, suburban. So yeah, I think I can relate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, you know, people of all ages need to feel acknowledged by the people that are going to govern them, and a lot of the time if they feel ignored, it can lead to a kind of strained relationship.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
what would success look like to you, not in just winning the race but in representing the district?
You know, if I had, you know, served in Congress and the House of Representatives and handled myself in such a way that, you know, I lived up to my own principles, at the same time as representing the people in the 9th District, you know, capably. And, you know, you're going to make some enemies, I'm sure, but, you know, made some friends. You know, yeah, I want to be a serious statesman, let's say. I mean,
Right.
I want to be somebody who is going to be a stand-up person for the people of this district, and a stand-up person for my family, and a stand-up person for myself. You know, and if I can do that, that would be success. You know, not everything I would propose would, you know, people would say was a great idea. You know, and there would be some failures along the way. But like I said, if I could come out of it having that opinion of myself, that would be success, I think. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. And success for yourself and success for Southwest Virginia.
Yeah. That
Absolutely.
I had represented the district. Yeah, I could hold my head up. Wouldn't have to go live on a island somewhere. Could still live in the 9th District and show my face.
It's a great outlook to have.
Yeah.
As my list of questions is coming to an end and our time is kind of coming to an end, I have one last big question to ask you, and that's just, you know, after everything that we've talked about today and after everything that you've talked to the people of Virginia about, is there anything else or anything in totality that you would like for the people of the 9th District of Virginia to know about you as we move closer to the election on August 4th?
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think if there's anything anybody would say about me who knows me, they would say I'm a hard worker.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but, you know, I was bivocational, which was being a pastor and an attorney at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, at one point I drove from Williamsburg to Lynchburg to Radford to Williamsburg to Lynchburg to Radford every week.
Right.
Because I had a home in Williamsburg, legal job in Lynchburg, and pastored a church in Radford.
Mm-hmm.
So I drove that circuit, and you know, I was serious about what I was doing. I got the jobs done. You know, I know that's not the prettiest way to say it, but, you know, I mean, that's important that you know, when you have a job, you do the job.
Yeah.
And that was I think that's kind of what I live for. I'm not done yet. You know, I'm still energetic and still have a lot to give, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's what I would want people, I think, to know. Yeah.
Yeah. And we talked about it earlier. I mean, you served for 3 decades as a Methodist pastor.
Yeah.
And then you also had, numerous years of experience being an attorney. And, like you said, you're still not done.
Right.
So I think that a hard worker is the right description to give you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for your answers.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, for WUVT 90.7 Blacksburg, I'm Joe Harris, and this is Douglas Crockett.
Thank you.